You released a statement on health care saying you thought it was no longer appropriate for the House and Senate to try to merge their health reform bills. You then released a second statement sort of withdrawing parts of the first one. Why did you change your mind, and what do you think is going to happen on health care next? As
I said, I overreacted, and when you make a mistake, you ought to acknowledge it. I was obviously disappointed on Tuesday. I was fearful that some people would be talking about trying to pass the health care bill in ways that would not be appropriate. For example, there was a suggestion I never thought it had a chance to hold off on seating Scott Brown or having a vote before he could take his seat. That would have been undemocratic. Manipulating the reconciliation procedure. I don't like the filibuster. I think it should be a great crusade now to try and change that rule, which the Senate can do by a majority at the opening of the Senate. But I was fearful that we were going to look, Democrats, as if we were contemptuous of the whole process. I realized when I reread the statement that I overstated it. There are legitimate ways to try and get health care through. Getting the votes will be difficult. So I put out a second statement making it clear that what I was objecting to were suggestions that we take some procedural shortcuts, which A, wouldn't have succeeded, and B, would have made people angry. We would have had the worst of both worlds. No bill and more fodder for the right-wingers trying to claim that we were being unfair. And in some cases, some of the tactics would have been unfair. So I did want to clarify that I am for trying to work something out. It's going to be difficult. One of the questions we're going to have to ask is of people like Senator Snowe of Maine, Senator Collins of Maine, who are described as moderates, do they want to be, in their political careers, known as the people who are responsible for preventing any reform in health care, for preventing any end of the abuses of the insurance companies? The Republicans were in an easy position politically when they were simply criticizing our effort to resolve the problem. Being responsible for the continuation of the problem unreformed, some of them may not be so happy about that. So I am in favor of us working to see what we can do. I happened to speak to the president about it today when I was at the White House on the corporate reform stuff, the financial reform stuff. But I did on Tuesday night want to caution people and reassure people that we weren't trying to do anything that was razzle-dazzle or flim-flam. But then I realized that I meant to talk about procedure the way I'd written it. It was Tuesday night, and I wasn't in the best mood I've ever been in, and it was late, and I should have waited until the morning, and so that's what I did.
Congressman, one last point on that issue of health reform. I keep hearing hope from various members of the Democratic caucus, both in the House and the Senate, that a Republican or two, some Republicans, will decide that they have to follow their conscience and vote for health reform, and that's how we'll get something done. I really don't think that's going to happen. I think that the Republican Party is going to enforce discipline like it never has before because they've felt such political success from saying no to absolutely everything. If there are 0 Republican votes, does that mean the end of health reform, or should this be pursued in a way that can happen with 0 Republicans? I think that's what you're going to get.
Well, I think you have to first try, or at least hold out the hope of the Republicans. I agree with you. I'm not optimistic. I do think that there are people, moderates, independents, who vote for Republicans on the ground that they are moderates. And they ought to be very clear that moderate Republicans, if they allow the health care bill, or if they try to kill the health care bill unanimously, then let's say that moderate Republicans are no longer an endangered species, they're an extinct species. They talk one way, but when the pressure comes from their party, they fade. We are working on how to try to do this. There are complications. There are some easy things to do in the sense of getting large majorities to discipline the insurance companies. But to get them done without there being increases in cost, you want to broaden the insurance pool. And yes, people are working seriously on this. So there are 2 tracks. One, maybe a couple of moderate Republicans will rediscover their moderation. I, like you, am skeptical. They haven't shown the willingness to stand up to this intense right-wing pressure and the fear of losing to the teabaggers in primaries. And so we are working on this, but it's very important, as I said, that we show that we're doing it in a procedurally appropriate way. There are ways to do this, and that's what's now being explored.
Democratic Congressman Barney Frank of Massachusetts, chairman of the House Financial Services Committee. Thanks for your time tonight, sir. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.